Well, it's been about 2 months since the election for the House of Representatives in South Carolina, and I haven't done a follow up on a video because I want to get through the holidays and get through the new year and get some things started on publishing the book and marketing the book. So I think it's a good time to go through a debrief of the election. So let's get started. This is Perspective. Hello, everybody. Mike Bedenbaugh here from Map Media Studios here in Prosperity, South Carolina. But as you can tell, it's a different studio than what I was in. I moved out of the Prosperity Depot and now have my own studio set up somewhere else. But I appreciate the patience. I mean, it's been 2 months, and I just wanted to take time to get out of the holidays, get things ready, start working on marketing the book, which is all important, reviving our republic, which is why I ran. I ran to elevate the concept of the book. I knew it would be hard. I knew it would be difficult to try to, as an independent, to try to overwhelm the tradition of voting Republican, which so many people in this district already are, they're geared to hit the R button on the ballot. And I understand that. But what I want to talk about now is kind of debrief on now that I was in the race and kind of open up the curtain of what goes on these races and how the money works, which has been the most astonishing, but also how the quest for power works in this country, and which is also a reason why this is very important on what I talk about in this, because this is at the heart of the corruptive influences that we have in our country. So let's just go through money raised. Now, myself, I raised almost $9,000. I had very dear friends who donated money to the cause. They appreciated what I was saying, and I just can't thank you enough for your faith, because not only did they have faith in me personally, but they also knew the money they were investing probably wasn't going to help me win. But they just believed in me and wanted my voice elevated. And I will always, and that's a special kind of support that I will always be thankful for. So thank you again for that. But, so let's look at this. So, of the Republican field, we had about 6 or 7 people. It was a large group of folks. Only 2 Democrats were running in the primary, 6 or 7 Republicans running in the primary. And it came down to the 3 front runners in that. The one I thought which would win without a problem was a gentleman named Stuart Jones. Now, Stuart is a representative in the State House in South Carolina, in Columbia, representing a portion of Lawrence District up in Lawrence, South Carolina. And Stuart did everything right to be a professional political leader. He did things at the local level and elected locally. Then he moved on up and became involved in his community, then moved on up and got into the State House. And he was the one that had put more time in, had built more consensus. The first picture that came out during his campaign, it showed him with 30 or 40 other representatives that were all backing him. I thought he was going to be the primary one. And let's say this, before the primary in June, Stuart raised $300,000. Now, when I first ran, somebody told me, Mike, you're going to need $250,000, $250,000 easy just to be competitive. Well, Stuart raised $300,000. And of that amount, now there's 3 different types of donations. So you have the unitemized individual contributions. Those are the folks that give less than $200. All right. Then you have the itemized individual. Those are individuals that give more than $200. But usually these folks are averaging $1,000. I mean, these are pretty good size donors to some degree, $1,000, $2,000. Then you have other committee contributions. And other committee contributions are things like PACs or other campaign committees, things like that, that can, other elected people who have raised money for their campaign, according to law, you can transfer that money over to someone else that's running for office, which is a whole nother reason that needs to stop. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, Stewart raised on unitemized individual contributions $22,000. That's people less than 200. His itemized contributions were $250,000. He had $250,000 given to him from large donors. I looked at his numbers. You can see it on the FEC website. 2,000, 1,000, 3,000. But the thing is, since he was running the primary, you could also raise money for the general. They're capped at $3,300. And he had a lot of folks that capped it at $3,300. So that's what he did. In the primary, he only garnered 18%. Now, let us look at Sherry Briggs. Now, Sherry Briggs, not a professional political leader. She is married to a gentleman who has multi-state veterans homes business with elderly care facilities all over several states. Very well-to-do gentleman. Nothing wrong with that. And Sherry campaign came in second, and Mark Burns came in first, but nobody had the 50% mark. Nobody got the majority. So they had to have a runoff. And because Stewart only got 18%, he wasn't able to be in the runoff. The runoff came down between Mark Burns and Sherry Briggs. Now, let's talk about these two. Mark Burns actually during the primary, he actually came out ahead. Why? Well, he was an amazing speaker, for one thing. I mean, you get out there, you feel like you're being preached to, and he was so good at that. Dynamic speaker. And he was the candidate endorsed by Donald Trump, right? Which was a major thing. He had known Donald Trump since 2015 campaign. He was titled the Trump's pastor. So there's Mark. Now, let's talk about what Mark raised. Unitemized individual contributions. Mark, now this is the whole election, not only the primary, but the general election. I mean, the primary runoff, I'm sorry, for the primary runoff. This is what Mark did for the primary runoff, which was at the around July. He raised unitemized individual contributions only $4,000. I mean, that's so low compared to what Stewart did at 22. His itemized individual contributions, people that paid over $200, was only $34,000. Stewart had $253,000. Mark only got 34. I mean, 34. I'm sorry. 34,000. That was it. But he had loans of $750,000. Now, somehow, some bank in Missouri was convinced by Mark or somebody to loan Mark against incoming receipts. First, $250,000, then another $500,000. All came from a loan. That's how he paid for his big super bus he drove around in. Now, is that because he was tied in? Donald Trump had endorsed him, and one of Donald Trump's guys in some bank loaned him the money? I don't know. But it's astonishing that he had so much. Now, let's talk about Sherry Briggs. Sherry, total contributions, $1,060,000. Now, of that, $395,000 are loans from the candidate. As I said, they're very fortunate folks. Her husband worked obviously very hard all his life and built a wonderful business. They could afford to do that, but they did it as a loan. They didn't do it as a donation. So it's a loan, $395,000, almost $400,000. Now, other unitemized individual contributions, the contributions below 200, was only $8,177. That is still less. That's 8,000. That's almost a third of what Stewart got on those smaller contributions. And then on individual, the big donors in around, that could give up to 3,300, 395,000, almost 400,000. Now, to be fair, Stewart was out at the primary, so he had no fundraising ability after the primary. Sherry kept fundraising again for the general election, and the caps are for each election. So if somebody's capped at $3,300 donation you can give to one candidate, you could do it twice. One for the primary, and if they win the primary, one for the general election. And if there's a primary runoff, you could do it for the primary runoff too. Boom, boom, boom. So that's at least $6,600 someone could donate to her over the two. That's why she has so much of the larger donations. But here's the interesting one. Other committee contributions, $260,000. That's almost $250,000 from other committee contributions. So what are these other committee contributions? Let's go through. So it's other elected officials, everything. Let's just go through a little piece. Scalise for Congress. This is the congressman, I think, from Virginia. Scalise for Congress, $2,000. Brandon Gill for Texas, another representative running from another state, $2,000. Kansas for Lad Turner, $4,000. It is filled with other representatives that are up in Washington. Now, Lad Turner actually was leaving, so he was able to take the money he had raised and give to her. But it's also major corporations, major lobbying groups. Honeywell International, part of the military-industrial complex, they gave $2,000. But the interesting thing about the majority of these donations that came to them came in the last month. In fact, Honeywell gave her $2,000 2 days before the election. Now, I want you to think about that. Most of these monies came in within 2 months of the election, after she had already defeated the other candidates. And knowing this is a red district. This is one of the reddest districts in the country. Everyone knows, unless something terrible happens, the Republicans going to get it. Yet they were funneling money into it 2 or 3 days before. What does that mean? That means they were budgeting themselves to make sure the people coming in know who gives them money. Honeywell gave her $2,000. Honeywell, in the election, this 23-24 cycle, 2023 to 24 cycle of election, they donated to other companies, to other candidates, $7 million to candidates all over the country. $7 million is what they budgeted to make sure they have access to these candidates. So, what does that mean? That means we have a problem. So, how do we fix all this? This is why I ran, so I could see this for myself and really experience understanding what it takes for these people to get elected, what it takes for a representative of the people to be able to get to Washington to actually represent their interests. Now, what's interesting is all three of these folks were vying for Trump's endorsement. They knew it would. They knew it would come through. So Stewart was able to put up a picture. He had introduced Donald Trump at several rallies here in the state, so he was able to get a picture with Donald Trump. A lot of the state representatives, according to my sources, of Trump's campaign was trying to get Trump to endorse Stewart. But the national folks overruled them and went with Mark Burns. Sherry, of course, wanted to get Trump's thing, but she didn't have any pictures with him. There's this one picture on her Facebook page with her in front of a picture and a cutout of Trump. That's all she could get was a cutout of Trump during the primary. But she was putting it in there to show I'll be sitting there supporting you, which is fine. But I just thought it was interesting. And then during the primary runoff, what was really wild is, again, Mark is still endorsed by Trump. And Sherry's putting out this, right a couple days before the election, she put out this flyer that just painted Mark as absolutely the most corrupt person in the world, even using a little stymie stare, which was a very unfortunate photo. And it just astonishes me about why the national people that were working on Trump's campaign would think this person would be the best. And now he's $900,000 in debt after she beat him. He was $750 from this campaign alone, but he was in debt, I don't know if the same bank in Missouri or not, from a previous campaign of another $150,000 or so. Good gracious. That's absurd. So, and then of course Sherry was endorsed once she beat Mark Burns. So how does this relate to what I wrote in Reviving Our Republic? So this has this campaign touched on three of the theses that I have. The 95 theses for the future of America. And the most important is thesis number 22. A candidate for political office can only accept campaign funds from individual citizens qualified to vote for them. There's that one. That would cut out everybody except the people that vote for them. If we're going to be able to get money, if people who want to vote for us can contribute money, we need to have that tied to the vote. I mean, think about how that would revolutionize the effects of money in campaigns. Now, one of the other aspects that we need to think about is corporate influence. And we all know Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court opened up for PACs to be able to give as much as they can. Well, the reason they did this, I mean, I consider myself a constitutional conservative and originalist. I understand why they did, because for the past 150 years, there is precedent for showing personhood is tied to trusts and corporations. And the Constitution doesn't differentiate between what types of personhood. So, what should we do to limit corporate hegemony? Thesis 87 and 88. We need a constitutional amendment to distinguish natural persons, or individual citizens, from artificial personas, or corporations. So, also to ensure in the 14th Amendment, this is Thesis 88, the 14th Amendment should refer to natural persons and not just persons, right? So we've got to fix that. Then one other thing, and this is something that I think is really important. I am a fan of ranked choice voting. I think people should be able to go in as many times as I've gone into the voting booth, and I think, gee, I wish I'd pick this one, but you know what? If I had a second choice, I'd pick this one. I think people should be given the right to do that. Ranked choice voting allows you to give a first, second, and third. Here's your primary, and you know what? If they don't win, you'll be fine having your vote go to this person. I am convinced if the Republicans would have allowed ranked choice voting in the primary, there's a good chance Stewart would have gotten it, because I knew so many people that wanted to vote for Stewart and thought Stewart was going to win, and many thought he should have gone, I suspect a lot of people would have put him down as their second choice. So what that means is, now I know a lot of Republicans have been pushing back on ranked choice voting in the state for whatever reason. They feel like they'll lose their foothold if ranked choice voting's in place. But on the primary, this is for your own club, and the Democrats too. This is for your own club. This is to help pick your candidate. And the way the primary works now is not the best way it works. So at the final amount, when Sherry only received in the final primary vote, Sherry only received 28,000 votes. That's it. And she won the campaign with that, just a few thousand over mark. That's all the people that voted that had a say in the fact that she was the Republican candidate. So ranked choice voting, I think, would have done a better job at picking the candidate that had done the most work versus was given the most money by people outside the state. So we'll see. There's a lot of other things we need to do. I have the book link here in the end of the in the video. It's available on Amazon and on my webpage. If you order it from Amazon, please put up a review. The more reviews we can get, the better we can get it up in the algorithm, and people will see it. And hopefully we can start a movement on this. All of this stuff is common sense. I appreciate everybody looking. Please like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. What do you think of ranked choice voting? What do you think of some of the other things that I brought up about this? Let me know your thoughts. Put in the comments. It really helps the channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell to know whenever I put up more videos. And I will be putting up more videos here very soon. Thank you again for the support you gave me. Thank you for the time you took to listen to this debrief. I will be coming out with a lot more episodes here soon. And until then, always remember, place, purpose, preservation. Take care.